Craig. Hello, Pleasant. We're missing Ariana. Let's see where she is.
Rookie.
Yes. Hello, audience. Happy Tuesday. We're just back from the holidays, which is amazing. Hey, Ariana, are you here with us? Is your oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Just back from the holidays, so getting the week started. I know it's a little slow, but we got this. It's the end of the quarter too, so we need to keep things moving. Audience, thank you for joining us. We have a poll today. I'm gonna open the poll and put it right here on the screen right now. So that's the question that we want you to answer. And while I do my introductions in here in the icebreaker with the speakers, please answer the poll, and then we're going to be discussing the results later on. But let me start with an icebreaker with our speaker. So we just had Thanksgiving, and I want to ask you, what is your favorite holiday dish? Let me start with Ariana.
Ooh, so this is a good question. Okay, are we gonna go with like side dish? Is that the category? Because there's
It
the
can
whole
be.
ham and turkey debate that goes on back and forth. For me, it's not Thanksgiving without mashed potatoes. You need potatoes in some form, but preferably mashed is
I agree.
always good.
I agree. I love a good mashed potato. What about you, Pleasant? What is your holiday go-to dish?
It's the stuffing. It's the stuffing inside the turkey that my mom makes, but then it's also this peanut butter pie that is, I mean, it's Thanksgiving
Peanut butter
every
pie.
time she makes that.
Mm.
So
That sounds good. What about you, Craig?
So I gross out my entire family a lot of ways, but with this, I mix everything together. So it's like turkey with squash, mashed potatoes, and green beans, and everything. And I just kind of cut it up and make a horrible goulash out of it. And I don't know why it bothers people, but it really does. But I
Yeah,
just mix it all together.
that
that
sounds good.
somehow does not surprise me about you, Craig.
Yeah,
Not
We
even
all know that.
at all. Just probably looking at the reactions of all your family that gives you the most joy.
it's about love.
I guess he's just keeping it real on his side, although I
Keeping it
don't think that's the
real
real we
on
wanted.
Thanksgiving.
That's the theme for today. All right, so let's get things rolling here. My name is Eduardo. I am a community events manager at Modern Sales Pros. I'm based in New York City, so audience, go into the chat and let us know where you're calling from. We love to hear from you. And we're here today to keep things real. We're going to have an honest conversation between sellers and buyers. And this event is brought to you by the team at Modern Sales Pros. And for those of you not familiar with MSP, we are the world's largest and highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, sales and revenue operations, and sales enablement, aka our Modern Sales Pros. Our community is formed by 35K sales leaders all around the world, and our mission is to help you answer the toughest revenue questions out there and to help you see around corners that you might not know about. We have a robust online forum where you can go and ask questions and have 35K people answering your questions and helping you with your problems. We have live events like this one you're about to experience. We have quarterly summits. We're going to launch the next cycle of summits pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. And we are back into in-person events, which is very, very exciting. Craig was just in an in-person event in Boston, and I'm sure he
Awesome.
had a lot of fun. And then, audience, if you're not already part of the MSP community, you will be invited to join us right after this event. I'm going to send a follow-up email. All right, so let's focus on this event here today. I have some housekeeping notes. So please use the Q&A panel. As I said, we're just back from the holiday, so the energy is a little low. And I was talking with the panelists backstage, and they were just like, oh, something that will really energize me this week is to answer a lot of questions. So please use the chat, answer the poll, and use the Q&A function to ask all the questions that you need from our panelists. Don't miss this opportunity. And then this event is being recorded. So all this knowledge will be available for you after this event. I'm going to send a follow-up email. So expect something from me later today with the key takeaways and the recording. But that's enough from me. I am going to pass the mic to Ariana. So Ariana, you can introduce us to the topic, introduce yourself. I'm going to leave the stage, but I'm going to be listening. So anything you need, just let me know, and I'll be listening and taking a lot of notes. I will join you later for some outro notes, okay?
Thank you, Eduardo, the host with the most, literally helping to put all of this together. So for once, I don't have to worry about the details. It's kind of nice. Usually I'm the one on the back end putting all this stuff together. But glad to be on this side and glad to be here. And honestly, just keep it real with you guys. I'm a pretty straight shooter when it comes to content and just bringing value to everybody. And today we're here just to have honest conversations between sellers and buyers, because there are tons of tricks, there's tons of tips, there's tons of process things out there, and by all means, go find them. Today, we're here to talk through some of the really art components of sales and just how we can make this better. So that's where Eduardo kind of introduced me. My name is Ariana Shannon, Marketing Director at Sales Intel. And along with me, we have Craig and Pleasant. So Craig, I'll hand it over to you first to give a little intro.
Hola. All right, guys. So I'm Craig Hennihan. I'm a Senior Director of Revenue here at Sales Intel. Before Sales Intel, hopping around a whole bunch of little startups, spent a good amount of time at Outreach for years. And prior to that was with the old OG of data, which is Rain King. So been in the space for way too long. And I like being on the side of the fence where I can, do as I say, not as I did. So happy to give advice that I probably didn't take myself, but psyched to be part of this today. Over to you, Pleasant.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Pleasant Middlehoff, and I am the VP of Sales at Converter. I also worked with Craig at Outreach back in the day, so we have a good long-standing relationship, and have been at other places like Pendo and Rollworks with Sean Cook, which I saw him on the chat there, and before that I was a teacher. Just a little bit about Converter, because a lot of people say, well, what the heck is Converter? And I just want to give you a little quick scenario. So we've got Ariana, who is a freaking awesome marketing manager and has done so much to get everybody here today in order to help everyone learn, but then also to help fill the sales team's pipeline with great quality leads. And the faster you get to them, the better. But like most marketers, you end up having to get these spreadsheets, kind of go through the muck, see who's qualified, reformat stuff, figure out, is it a real lead, is it not? Did someone just put in their personal email because they really don't want to get the marketing content? And that takes a ton of time and slows it down. So therefore, we have Converter, which is a lead management operations platform. Which lets you put all of your inputs from your leads, from all of your lead channels into the processor, and in real time, within real minutes, you get it delivered out to your systems, whether it's your marketing automation, Salesforce, all that good thing. So I love being at this company. It's been a really exciting journey so far.
Awesome. And Ariana, before we hop in, can we go back and can I give a little 30-second plug on all things Sales Intel? Little things. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real simple. And I'm going to see how many cliches I can throw all at once, but find your people, build your pipeline, right? It's all about company data intelligence, and more isn't better. Better's better. So how do we do that, right? So we want to take this and bring it down to here. So first, we want to make sure that we're targeting the right accounts, firmographic data, technographic data, make sure that our ICP is tight. From there, who should we be speaking to? Let's leverage different forms of intent data so that we can find people that are actively interested in what we have to talk about, right? Now, let's make sure that we have actionable contact data. Emails actually go through. Cell phones, remember that, the old cell phone? So let's make sure that we're delivering the right information on your people. And then we need to keep it updated, because data is ugly and people move around a lot. So there's a lot of changing parts. So we have a research team that's going to help fill in those gaps, so that when people move around, instead of your reps spending their very valuable time doing all the digging, let our team do that for you. Let's find those new different people, update it for you, and then for everybody else. If we can do that, we might be onto something. And see.
No, absolutely. Because that's what I love about having both of you here, is it's really about efficiency. How do you create efficiency in your overall go-to-market? How are you creating that for your sales team? And then just being honest with where everybody's at. So I'm going to go back to this poll. I told everyone in the chat, hey, let's get those answers in, make sure that they're here. Eduardo, can you put that up for me? Awesome. So what do we get for answers to the poll? It sounds like a resounding not enough lead volume, closely followed by nothing wants to close. So that's pretty standard for everyone out there right now. It's a slower, and here's one of those cliches, Craig, those macroeconomic times. If I hear that, or unprecedented times one more time. It's just we need to find another more creative way of referring to this, but it's true. Either people are struggling to get things into the top of their pipeline, or they're struggling just to get things through. And we'll be able to talk about those a little bit today, and really just through this theme of let's keep it real. Let's be honest about what's going on. Let's be honest about where we're struggling. And thank you for everyone who answered, because that helps us to understand where we can speak to a little bit more clearly in this process as we go through. So let's kick things off. Let's keep it real with you, we the speakers. So Craig, do you want to speak to this one for us?
Yeah. So it's definitely going to be a drinking game every time we say keep it real. I think everyone should party out there in the internet world. But one thing that we think of, especially in Q4, is really kind of what's the balance between kind of the science of sales and the art, the just get her done part of sales. And I know Pleasant, we've worked together in the past, and it's always tricky. We all have sales methodologies. We have processes that are in place. It is really, really important to have kind of a structured workflow. But then once we get to Q4, like now it's like, all right, that work's done. How do we just have a human conversation and say, what do we need to do to make this be a mutual win?
Yeah.
Right.
I think that was kind of the genesis of why we called it keeping it real, is because, everyone is so heavily leaning on data, which is, and, different strategies and the different things that we should be doing in Q4. But the reality is that this is one of the biggest quarters for your art to come out. Your negotiating skills, you're figuring out what your strengths are, how to really get to the buyer and just speak to them in a way that creates that urgency or bring the right people in. Q4 is about the art of sales. It's about how do you get creative when they are also facing the same types of, timelines, and so are you. So how do you get creative, and how do you be that artistic seller?
I think before we can introduce that, though, we do definitely need to make sure that we've earned the right? Because being fun Bobby is great on the weekend, but we need to make sure that we have kind of cross the T's and dotted the I's. Again, stats. We know how many people are now part of that buying committee. Have we matched up? Have we asked the right questions? Do we know what their timeline looks like? Do we have the implementation date? Have we done all that little stuff in either discovery or early on, so that when we do come to that hopefully negotiation table, we can kind of lay down our chips and say, hey, we've done X, Y, and Z. Here's your issue. We've acknowledged and proven that we can, fill that gap or do what we need to do to earn your business. Now can I have it? And being able to do that in a professional, consultative way, I think is kind of one of the biggest challenges, especially now, right?
Yeah. I think that balance piece too of being a consultant, this is the time more than ever to know where your strengths and your weaknesses are, and when you should be loading the boat and bringing in other people that have different skill sets that can shorten that time to your sale, shorten that time to your close. And so, I think it's a really valid thing to bring on your leadership team a little bit earlier into the sales cycle with the transparency of, hey, let's keep it real. We're trying to work towards a Q4 close. So how do we get all the right people at the table? I'm going to bring mine, you bring yours. And that way we can get this done, because we've both agreed that this is something mutual between us that we want to have happen. So know where you can load the boat, who has those qualities that you need to help drive the sale, and maybe to fill in some of those gaps that you haven't been able to discover yourself.
Yeah. And I definitely think to that point, being self-aware, knowing that you're seen as sometimes the sales dude or just the salesperson, knowing that if you have, heavy integrations or, there's a lot there, bringing in a sales engineer as early as possible. Or if it's more of a marketing play, maybe bringing your CMO to speak with their CMO. They want to speak with peers. Same with the CEO. So being kind of multi-threaded, and then just, I think at the end all be all, kind of being able to flip the script and say, hey, if I were on the other side of this table, what am I calling BS on? Like what it's the old, be the buyer you want to be the type of seller you'd want to buy from, right? And I think that rolls right into this next point.
Yeah. So I have a story for this one because I was thinking about, like, how do we get ourselves out of the tech world for a little bit and think about how we are as buyers, and then also how we are as sellers, and like what are good experiences, bad experiences. So this past year, we had just gotten a new vehicle, didn't even have it for a year, and it was the first new vehicle I'd ever owned, and it was a birthday present. Got into a massive wreck and was destroyed. So, my husband, he's amazing. He called the dealership up, and went through their insurance, and he was like, listen, because this was one that had specific colors. He's like, she loved this car. Like, let's get her this exact one and, have it on your lot when we're driving an hour and a half out, have it on your lot, so this salesperson, thought, sweet, I'm getting this sale, whatever I could do, it's happening. So they got the car there, and then when I got there, I saw the next model up, which I didn't realize that they had. I didn't realize there were other options because I'm not a researcher on cars, and I couldn't unsee what I had seen. So I was like, well, I really like this one. Like, I know you did the work. Can we get this one instead though? And unfortunately, with all the car inventory, they didn't have it there. And so the dealership down the street happened to have exactly the car that I saw. And I was like, this is one. Now I'm like really excited. And I don't want to just get the replacement. Like, let's go this way. And so as I thought about that buying experience, the sales guy, he didn't know his buyer. He knew my husband, but he didn't know the buyer, which was me. Because it was for me, and he didn't do anything either, which, there's ways to send pictures and text, like, hey, like, make sure you check them all out, go over these with your wife. Like, we've got these other options to prep before the sale. He didn't de-risk his sale at all. And so what happened? My head got turned. So all that to say, I'm a really good buyer when a seller creates an opportunity for me to be that type of buyer. When I feel comfortable, when I'm given the opportunity to say, hey, these are the things that I need when I talk to sellers, or, I'm looking at different demos and pitches, I'm very clear and upfront, like, this is what I need. If you can help me, great, awesome. I'm very upfront. But a seller also has to do the work and provide me with the value, provide me with the resources that I need to do my homework, provide me with the information that would allow me to go up level and say, hey, let's get some budget for that. So be a great seller that enables your people to be a good buyer. Do the work, put it in, have the resources and references available for them, anticipate their needs and anticipate what could go wrong. And then if you're on the buying side, because there's many of us that are on the buying side, we're the ones making the purchases and trying to haggle and negotiate the deals down or get things pushed through. Remember how hard those salespeople are working, and be a great buyer. Give them the resources that they need. Everybody knows Medic. So we all know that they're all trying to check the boxes. So therefore, be a good buyer and cut to the chase without stringing people along and deprioritizing what is actually a priority.
Yeah. One thing that really stood out in that story that you're saying, Pleasant, and I think we all have been guilty of this. The seller was focused not on you and what you cared about. He knew what your husband wanted and cared about. So many times in these sales cycles, especially when we're getting close to the end, they bring in someone new, and we bully right through and say exactly what the first or second person cared about. I think it's really, really hard, but it's also important that when others are involved, take a time out, take a pause, confirm what we heard from everybody else. How does this align with what you care about? Operations cares a lot different than marketing versus sales. If someone from marketing comes in late in the game, they might be over here and you're focused here. So take a second. This is what we heard. What do you think? 9 out of 10 times might help you and might be more value and make it that much more important. So I think it's easy to get caught in our own mind, and this is where we keep it real, and take a second and say, hey, what matters to you? What do you care about? How are we going to help you solve this problem? We're doing this together. And if you can do that and be genuine about it, I think you're doing all right.
Yeah.
And it's better to ask that question, Craig, because I've been on buying committees where I'm doing a lot of the research, I'm bringing this in, and I come in and say, okay, here's the meeting with the stakeholders, everyone that's going to be using this, influenced by it at some point. And sometimes the answer to the question, well, what do you care about, is not really. I'm not going to have minimal experience, like exposure to whatever this is. Great. Then you're right back where you were, but you're still, like you said, de-risking that sale and making sure that you're getting ahead. So even if the answer to that question is nothing different than what you've already heard, you've at least taken the time to ask the question and make sure that you're still in a good position than being blindsided at the 10-yard line when you get down to that contract.
Yes. And Ariana, having been in that seat, and I've been on both sides of this, shame. But best thing you can ever do is say, hey, Ariana, what do you care about? Worst thing you can ever do is follow it up with, oh, here's my next slide. Here's my next slide. Like, take a second, digest it, ask a good follow-up question, dig in, and let the people feel like they've been heard. Actually really hear them. So yeah, great. Good point there.
Yeah. That's all I got for that one.
So I guess, so we're talking about, it's great from a selling perspective and buying perspective, right? But there's a whole nother side of the house. It's the old pipeline. It's the old one-on-ones with your manager. It's the updates that you get, usually once a week, but near the end of the year, it's once a day, right? So how do we do this on really both sides in regards to pipeline, right? And most people, I think, in any parts of management have been there, done that. So carried a bag. So I've been very, very guilty of this personally, where I never want to say goodbye. If we had a good conversation in February, I'm still holding on. But do you have 40 ops in your pipeline for December when you average 3 closes a month, right? How are we really honest and sincere and just truthful about what's real and what isn't in regards to that pipeline?
I think one of the things, especially from, you're going from a seller's role to a manager role to now a VP role, and, reporting up to the board of different numbers and things. It's really important to understand that a lot of the decisions that are being made are made based off of data that is being given to the decision makers, what they can see, what they can evaluate. And so, especially in this time, there's so many people that are nervous, and rightly so, about their jobs, about how they're going to end, about, what's next for the company, and there's uncertainty. You can do your part and de-risk that for yourself by keeping it real with your pipeline, and by calling out risk where you see risk and asking for help when you need help, and by not inflating things when they shouldn't be inflated, and actually having something that's clear and up to date. So that way the people above you, there's always going to be people above you, have the right information to make decisions that are best for the company and ultimately you. That's been one of the biggest things that I've learned is, throughout my careers, it never benefits to have that false sense of hope, and just hold on to it. Never benefits anybody, because then you look back and think, why did we miss so much? So keep it real with your Q4 pipeline, and make sure that you are thinking about it in that way in times of economic uncertainty. Give yourself some certainty and de-risk it yourself.
Yeah. And I think everybody listening, everyone that's been through this, would much rather have 6 deals closed out of the 8 that you have versus 6 out of the 28. Right. And how do we make sure those 28 or 8 opportunities are good opportunities? And I think, at least on our team, it's the mutual, and I stress the mutual and the action plan. How many reps have an action plan? How many are truly mutual? You're on that first call. Here's a sales process. Here's what we're going to do. And the other person just kind of yeses you. Like, are you actually getting buy-in? Are you assigning homework back and forth? Are you on this journey together? Or are you just one of 6 reps throwing numbers at people? Right?
So dive into that a bit more, Craig. What does that look like to create a mutual goal?
Yeah. Well, I think in the beginning of any call, you want to make sure you have the right stakeholders, because sometimes people don't know. So sometimes you ask them, hey, Pleasant, the last time you brought in a vendor like us, what did that look like? You're going to learn right away if Pleasant's, well, this is my first time I've ever done it, or, well, it's actually Ariana and Steve and Joe and Mary, right? So saying, hey, help me understand what your process looks like. And then saying, hey, great, that aligns really well with what we see. Because as sellers, we're doing this all day, every day. Hopefully you've done this a lot. As buyers, Pleasant, this might be the second or third. So I think it's really important to be consultative and say, what we typically see is you'll want to, in our case, run a data test. There may be other stakeholders that might want to demo first. Let's do a platform walkthrough. Then let's test it. Then from there, from a commercials perspective, who's going to be involved? And by the way, Pleasant, who does a negotiation on your side? Oh, it's me. It's all me. I'm the end all be all. Is it? Do you have procurement? What's legal? So I think having those open-ended conversations as early as possible will really help kind of lay down the tracks. And then just keeping it simple, saying, like, is this something needed yesterday, or is this exploratory for next week, next month, next year? When would you want to see your team up and running? When would you want to see benefit from this? And then you work back from that I date.
And asking another good question is, how did last quarter end up not having something like this in place? So instead of looking, again, forward thinking, let them get a little uncomfortable with their results last year. But speaking of getting a little uncomfortable, the other piece of this side of being sincere and honest is keeping it real with the things that you say in Q4 to your customers or to your prospects, because this is the time to throw around the catchphrases, the cliches, and to become that pushy. No, Craig, you were never like this. You were never like this. I promise.
Aspire to be.
But the pushy salesperson that, this will end on day. And if you don't sign, it's gone. I mean, we use it a lot, right? Like, it's been used. It's been used, abused, and overused. But for those of us that have bought, and especially in SaaS, it's like, well, we know if that price was good yesterday, it could be good today. And so again, keep it real with things that you say as motivating tactics to get a deal, and make it something that's mutually beneficial that would help both of you in the long run if you get this done by certain dates. Learn what's important to them, that won't come and bite you.
And I think that's really where we're back to the art, right? Did you build a good rapport? Have you earned the right to just kind of talk straight? Say, hey, how do we make this a win-win? Just, dropping the price and, the sky falls December 31st will never go away. I think people see through that. And I think it kind of goes back, like, if you hear yourself sounding salesy, you're sounding pretty, stop, abort. But a lot of the people that we're selling to, they're doing the same thing. And they're encouraging their sales teams to say the same thing. So they know it's coming. I think how you put it together and present it, make it less threatening, and say we'd love to work together to make this be a win-win for everybody. And if you can do that, you're doing all right. And if you're at the point with the right people to have that conversation, that's what we strive for.
Yeah, it's being an empathetic seller, because that your paper that's going through their legal, they're also processing their paper that they're trying to get done for their end of quarter and their end of sales. And so it's understanding that companies are always on crunch time at the end of their fiscal year. It's great when you find the ones that aren't actually at the end of their fiscal year, because then you can have a little bit more flexibility with them. They're not under that same time pressure. But being upfront again, when you earn, like Craig said, when you earn that right to sell and that right to ask the questions, I always encourage my reps to be upfront as soon as possible. Like, hey, we're really trying to get this done by the end of December. Is that possible for you? And your team's going to be really bombarded, I'm sure. So how early, what is it going to take? What are the things that we need to do to kick off that process? Can we do things in parallel? Because we don't want to put anyone at crunch time, and we both want to make this happen. So, level the playing field, that we all know what's happening. We all know what's going on behind the scenes, and be artistic in the way that you give your delivery versus, are we going to get it done? Are we going to get it done?
What's it going to take?
Oh, I love that email, Craig. What's it going to take for me to get a signature?
What's it going to take to get you in this car today?
And at that point, and again, being on that buyer side, once you see what's it going to take, that's code for, I am desperate and I will do just about anything. And so you have given all of your power back to me, the buyer, which selfishly you kind of love, because then you can kind of go back and remake some mistakes. So it's all about, again, finding that balance. And that's the key point there, because being on that buying side, I expect a certain level of salesmanship and follow-up, because that's your job. I respect that that's your job. Your job is to make sure that I find a good solution if you're finding that mutual goal, but then also that you are following up with all the processes, procedures that your sales leaders, your directors, your CROs, that they expect of you. So I understand that some of what you're doing is just being a good sales professional. The line there is when you get into those strong arm tactics, which are very, like we heard mentioned of, the deal's gonna go away on the 31st, or what's it gonna take to do this, or this is a once in a lifetime offer, it never happened. It'll be there. I've only ever seen the offer go away once, and then we went with the competitor. And that's how business works sometimes. Sometimes you have to know when to cut your losses, because that's another way of keeping it real with your Q4 pipeline. Yeah. Again, another note from this marketing side, where you guys are saying, hey, be realistic about what actually has the propensity to close in this quarter. That echoes back up to marketing, because all marketing, what we can do is continue to bring in leads. And so if we're bringing in leads that make it further down the sales cycle and then don't close, that's not good optics, because what we have is the information that's provided to us. And so that tells us, oh, there's something wrong with this part, there's something wrong with there. And it's just being transparent within your organization to create a better future pipeline for yourselves as well. So it's not all about what you're doing is trying to take care of your own numbers, but as Pleasant and Craig said, it does have further amplifications on the business for everyone that is looking at the data and is trying to make sense of it to, again, provide you with the pipeline and the leads that you need in the future.
I want to, Ariana, one thing that you said, I want to just circle real quick back on, which is the strong arm tactics and like the end of quarter deals. Those are real things though. So I'm not saying, come on, everybody knows that if you're closing out your fiscal year, you want to close it out strong. But sometimes the better way to actually deliver that message is by bringing on, say, your sales leader or someone that's above to be able to say, hey, listen, here's what we're able to do for you. And just keeping it real. This is something that we've decided to promote for this quarter so we can close our quarter strong and have a great, kick off a fresh new year. And this is something we worked out with finance. So there is a timeline. There is a deadline to it. Is this something that you can actually commit to? And if so, we'll get the process moving forward. And sometimes if you're in that selling role, having someone come that's above to deliver that kind of a message has a lot more weight than delivering it yourself, because they're hearing it from the leadership's point of view. And it's a great way to kind of help with those Q4 incentives and things that are designed to help accelerate the deals forward.
Yeah, one thing I just want to double down on there. So we're kind of assuming that we've already done our due diligence and done a good job of showing value, and not just showing value because value. Have we monetized that? What does this mean if Ariana said earlier, like, hey, how was last quarter? How much did you miss by? What happens if you miss again? And if we do this, we agree that our solution can help with it. So now it's whatever, $200,000-$300,000 and our solution's $100,000. Do the ends equal the means? And can we communicate that as we go from your influencer to your coach to the DM, and now 3 clicks later, we're working with procurement? Do they know that? Do they understand that? Do they see that? And how does that influence and impact, the wham bam, special deal? When, as Eduardo was mentioning, when you do get that pressure from a CFO, CEO, close. Well, let's make sure that it's fully baked and that they understand why they're buying it in the first place, and why it's better to buy now instead of 2 weeks from now on January 4th or 5th. All right.
No,
the other
absolutely.
thing, just side note, hopefully we're all here. We're saying Q4. What's Q4? A lot of companies that we're speaking with have pushed it out to January 31st. So know that. Are they playing the let's make a deal working December 31st till midnight? Or do they shut down the last 2 weeks in December to take a break? Little thing that's often overlooked. Please, everyone out there, ask, hey, what's the end of the year look like? Do you guys shut down? Or is it crazy? Are you working deals? What's your legal team look like? Are they overworked flipping contracts on their end? Like a little bit goes a long way, and just asking the right questions early on can really save you from heartbreak on December 30th when you find out their entire legal team's gone.
Yeah, that is so true.
Happened to my buddy Phil more than once.
Oh,
man.
Phil. I know you, Phil.
Name drop.
No, and that happens.
He's a good guy. Good guy.
No, and that's great to bring up, Craig, because it's not so much getting the yes, but then it's all the extra little steps after that yes to actually get the contract signed, to get things in motion. And that's where, if knowing that early on in your selling process and in your discovery, then you can automatically just be real and be like, oh, their team, everyone is out of pocket for the last 2 weeks of December, and we just got a yes 2 days ago. It's very unlikely that this is actually going to sign and be that quickly. So then how are you keeping it real and moving forward into your Q1 pipeline? Because the other thing that I see happen a lot of times, and I'd love your two perspective on this, of do what you need, but don't sell yourself short. So much, it's all about, I have to close the year strong. I have to close the year strong. So I'll pull all of my deals into Q4 and strip my Q1 pipeline. So I come back to nothing. And my Q1 is low because I actually gave so many discounts, or I did so much of this thing. How do you manage the ability to just be honest with what's actually going to close, but still being strong? And again, not selling yourself short by going down discount lane.
So I want to say, as a seller and as a manager, this is when you actually have to be the most intentional with your time and intentional on focusing on priorities versus those little flames that look like fires, but really aren't anything. It's just a little birthday candle that you can blow out. And that is so crucial, because there are deals. And if you know your pipeline, there's deals that are going to close in Q4. But if you're not setting aside the time to build your pipeline for Q1, to focus on the new pipeline that is coming in Q4, and to be expert at continuing the process without, them feeling the pressure that you're feeling of closing your Q4 or whatever quarter you're in, you have to be forward thinking. And that takes a very data-driven and mathematical mind of, what is my pipeline today? What is my close ratios? Do I have enough for next quarter? Because it's great if I hit this one out of the park. It's really not good if I'm totally dry. And how much do I need to get in there? And those are the real conversations that when you're working with reps, if you're in a leadership position, to have of, okay, you don't have the pipeline. So what are you going to do about it? Let's talk about strategy. What do we need to do to fill it? What do we need to do to get you there? Which deals can we focus on that, we know we can really have in a good spot for Q1? Because right now you're showing up about 40% short of where you'd actually land. So don't neglect your Q1 or your Q2 or your Q3 by trying to pull everything in and offering discounts to get it out. And And of course, as a seller, there's always things like accelerators and things that kind of put you in that mindset. But again, don't neglect your future quarters, and especially in a leadership role, you should be looking at the next 2 quarters at least. And how are you pacing? And if based on your sales cycle, how much do we actually need to have stacked up this quarter in order to close and hit our goals for next quarter, and so forth. So be focused on the end game, not just the immediate things for attention.
Well said.
Thanks,
I
Greg.
think the poet Cube said, check yourself before you wreck yourself. I think that's kind of where we're going with that. So,
I think I was a poet.
yeah, sure, thanks. But yes, Ariana, are we thinking of maybe shifting over to some Q&A?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of questions that have come through. So please, everyone, put your questions in. I'm going to throw up these last little things just as a quick recap, because there's been a lot. We didn't do a lot of slides because, again, no one wants to look at a lot of slides. We just want to keep it real. There it is. There it is again. For those who can count. So bringing it all together, we heard strong arming does not work. So stop it, please. For everyone out there, on behalf of all buyers everywhere, please stop it. We can see it a mile away. It's not charming. It's not fun. If you've built a good enough rapport with me, you can come to me and say, hey, like a December signature actually does make a huge difference for me personally. Does that make sense? Does that work? But again, it goes back to all the groundwork you've done before. Don't just DM me and then be like, hey, I need to do this. Can you do me a favor? I don't know you. I'm sorry. We don't have that relationship. Number 2, be the type of seller buyer you would want to buy or sell from. Again, it's a 2 to tango here. We have to be honest on both sides of this. The buyers, by being upfront and telling you, hey, this is actually what I'm looking for, which is more often the case than not. About 80% of your buyers, especially on inbound side, they've already looked at people. They already have their list of questions. They're just fact checking with you on the last couple of things. So make sure you're creating a consultative experience. Make sure you're really listening and that you are answering their questions, not just going down your talk track, because that's not fun either. Number 3, focus on the mutual goal, not just your goal. And Craig, I think this was your point. I don't know if that originated with you, but I'm gonna give you credit because you're the one that brought it up in all of our pre-meetings of what is it that the 2 of you are working towards. Yes, you, the seller, you want to end the day with a sale. You want that closed one opportunity in your CRM with all the high-fivings going on in Slack. Awesome. But it's not just about that. It's what your buyer's also trying to accomplish. So how do the 2 of you get to a mutual agreement, either with that being a contract or with it being a parting of ways of, hey, this doesn't really work, and I want you to go and spend time on someone who actually will close. And I've told sellers that before of, hey, it looks interesting, but I don't have the budget. I don't have the time to look at this right now. Please go focus on someone else in your pipeline that will have more time and have a conversation with you. And then lastly, before we get into our Q&A, again, keep it real with your pipeline. And I love what Pleasant, you were saying about focusing on what's going on right now, focusing on what's going on in the future, and understanding that this is fluid. Yes, the amount of pressure to do things in Q4 is massive, and everyone feels it from the top down, especially right now. Budgets are freezing, companies are tightening their belts, PE, VC, like everyone's shortening up a little bit. So we've got to do our due diligence and make sure we're creating these consultative experiences and just being honest about where everyone is as much as you can be. Any comments on that from Craig or Pleasant before we jump into Q&A?
The only thing I'd kind of double down on, we say like a mutual goal. Somebody taught this to me years ago and it really stuck. If we're sitting at a table and I'm sitting across from you, Ariana, and I'm talking back and forth, envision it like this. I actually stand up and I come over and I sit next to you. And now we're working on the same piece of paper together. Like if we can get to that where we're doing this together, you're so much, you just put yourself in such a better spot, and you're less likely to get that Dear John and we went 16 different places. If they can feel like that, like you're together working to accomplish that, it just makes all the difference.
I would just say one thing that we didn't say in here is just remember that your prospects are hopefully going to be your customers. And so be the one that starts the relationship on a really great note. Be the one that they're like, this person was so good to work with. And therefore, the company must be like this if I've had such a great experience with this person. Relationships are huge. And everyone says that, I don't know how many interviews I've sat through where people are like, what's your best, your best thing? And someone will say it's relationship building, but that really is an art. To build that relationship, to build the mutual respect, to be someone that the prospect actually wants to work with. So keep it in mind because you are the start of the partnership, and it's a really important piece.
No, absolutely. All right, so let's jump over into these questions, and I'm going to start all the way back at the beginning with a question from Kristen. Kristen wants to know, any suggestions for encouraging them to take the time to share their pain points and priorities? It's really a struggle this time of year to get them to even engage to this point.
I'll tell you this, depending on your sales cycle, and if this is the end of your quarter, the reality is we're in December, almost. So new prospects, unless you have like a 2-week turnaround on your transactional, it's going to be really hard to get them to engage. So this is the time when you can do things like send educational pieces, give them and deliver value bites, and be respectful that they're going through an end of year and holidays, and don't ask for a meeting tomorrow. Ask for a meeting like, can we put some time on? Because I know people in your space typically have challenges with X, Y, and Z, and it must frustrate you. So can we just put some time on for the beginning of January after the holidays? So know if it's a reality of like, this is a person that's going to buy this year, and tailor your messaging that way, because that's where a lot of times things fall short, in my opinion.
Yeah. Hopefully you did this last month and the month before, but ex-clients or closed lost opportunities, people that maybe went through part of a buying cycle, like what's different, what's new, what's changed. You made a decision to go elsewhere. How'd that work out for you? If you did your job and you did a good job of, or at least decent job of building rapport, and you're not a total jerk, hopefully they give you 2 minutes to say, yeah, well, we thought this, but we found out that, or we're super happy, move on. Or maybe they're not even there anymore. Maybe there's somebody new, or maybe the person that loves you went to another company that's a better fit for you. So I think revisit anyone that you've spoken to all year. It's much easier to continue a conversation and spark a new one at this point.
Yeah, I would echo that. Even though it's November and I'm still getting those emails in my inbox of, hey, let's meet, let's do this, let's do that. I'm already focused on other things I've got. So if you do have a shorter sales cycle, let's say it does fall within that component, then it could be, hey, what are you trying to accomplish before the end of the year? What is something that's blocking you, and trying to position yourself in that way. So I love those answers. Look at your sales cycle and be realistic. At this point in time, if you had a conversation or a meeting with them tomorrow, does it fit within the sales cycle or not? Basically what we really heard there. The other thing I would say, Kristen, is just make sure that you're getting that pain point early on, especially in your conversations, as best you can.
The other thing too is giving them something. So talk to your marketing team, talk to your product team, but honestly, the emails that I've always responded to, I like learning about new things. So I'm kind of a sucker for taking demos and calls, but the emails I respond to are the ones where they're like, hey, I noticed this and this about your website, and here's 3 things that just our team could recommend. Your consulting firm, would you take some time to chat with us? Or here's some data that would be relevant to your company about your prospects. And so think about things that you can give them about their company that actually might help them immediately, is a really, really good way to spark a conversation. So I've actually within the past 3 months, taken probably 4 or 5 meetings by people doing that for me and showing me a little value before they actually ask me for any information.
Yeah. A well-placed kind of a social proof point as well. Like, here are the pain points we're helping for these companies. Not sure if you're running into it. Yes, you are, but we might be able to help you with X, Y, and Z too.
Awesome. All right, we're going to move on to our next question. This one comes from Michael. And this is a really good one. How do you hide the massive close now pressure from the CEO, CFO, and the BDO? BDO pressure.
You don't.
Are you talking about, curious, Michael, are you talking about from like a management to your sales team perspective, or from like what you're feeling as a seller, passing it on to your customers?
Michael says from the top down.
From the top
So
down.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important as a manager, your team needs to respect you. Like, if you haven't built that mutual respect with your team to where you can be transparent and honest with them, like, here's what our goal is, folks. Here's what we're trying to get to. Let's talk about how we're pacing and keeping people accountable to what they're saying. That's where things go really wonky. Also, this is a time as a manager and as a leader where if you're in a position where you're not being, you're kind of like stressed out, you could start throwing a lot of things at the wall. I mean, a lot of things, like, we need to do this and we need to do that and we need to do this and we need to implement this and we're tracking this. And then what you think is good is actually putting way more pressure on people because they're like, we just want to sell. Like, we want to finish out really strong. So resist the urge to try to find more solutions because you're feeling the angst of, and we all have, of that end of year pressure.
Yeah. And just to kind of to piggyback on that, Pleasant, like, as management, it's our job to kind of be that buffer between the CEO and the reps, and just pushing that pressure on. They're already stressed enough as it is. They need to feel supported, understand what the goal is, and then what little steps we need to do every single day to make sure we're marching towards that, so that we can get there.
And get your hands dirty. I mean, my team knows, and every team I've worked with knows that I will get my hands dirty with them, that I'll get in, get on calls with them. If we're strategizing about stuff, I'll be looking at stuff on research to figure out other inroads of maybe, we can make these connections because I have different connections. Get your hands dirty with them, because it's easy to be told to do something. It's a lot easier to follow someone that's doing it with you.
Cliche. It's okay to win alone. No. I'm saying the old cliche. It's okay to win alone. Don't lose alone. Right? If they're in there, if they're on those calls and it doesn't go the way you're intending it to, if they were there at every step of the way, it's hard a Monday morning quarterback when you're in the car, when you're actually there with them. So involve, get everybody involved. And if you've done everything you can, awesome.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go for one more question before we do our end of the conversation here. And this one's a great one from Phil. Just says, closed loss. What do you feel as an appropriate time frame to check back in on a loss?
Really depends on your product, your sales cycle. Was it a 2-year contract? I think, I want to say it's never too early, but it probably is. In our world, Phil, I'd give 3 or 4 months. Hey, would love some, always have a postmortem, kind of would love some feedback, would love to grow how to, for future contests, but then continuously providing educational material, being helpful, not asking for anything, just providing information and kind of keeping that rapport and that relationship, right? And then from their perspective, I don't know, maybe halfway through, when does it make sense? When do you usually start the evaluation process for the next one? Make sure all that data is in Salesforce so that we know exactly when that process should be. So we don't get caught where I check in with Pleasant and she's like, oh, I just renewed last week. You don't want that. Right.
I feel it depends on your close lost reason. If they chose a competitor and they're locked and they've done it, that, I give it, 3-4 months, check in, see how things are going. If they're satisfied, if there's a way that you can continue to be a resource, but don't put all your eggs in that basket. More often than not, deals go closed because people go silent, because we're single threaded, because we overcomplicated the sales cycle, because something else happened. They chose to do nothing or stay with their current provider versus choosing another competitor. And so at those stages, you can go back in a lot faster. You can go in and say, hey, look, I re-listened to our calls and I realized I missed the mark on this. Give it a couple of weeks so you can show that you're being reflective. But I really missed the mark on it, and consult with your leadership team, do a postmortem. And if you were single threaded and that person just ghosted you, and so you closed locks because the opposite sitting around, but you learned a lot of good information, this is the time to get multi-threaded real fast and see who's new in the org, how, found this out, learn this about the company and get yourself in there. But, it depends on the lost reason. If there was something you could have done differently and they didn't sign another contract and you were like out, then make it right.
Yeah. And I'll even put a plug in here, but as we welcome Eduardo back, talk to marketing. I promise we are friendly. Marketers are friendly. We do want to help. We do want to create campaigns. If there's a way for you to create a campaign that has marketing auto follow up on those close lost for you all as a good, true ABM motion, then ask. There's no harm in asking, just to see what could be done to help with air support, to support the sales team. And with that, Eduardo, welcome back.
Awesome, thank you. That was an amazing conversation. Do you want to give this those 2 slides here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so with sales intel, as Craig mentioned earlier, it's all about finding your people and building your pipeline. And that's what we were talking about today, is building those pipelines. And that's why sales intel, because we are sponsoring this event, we do want to give a special opportunity for everyone here to learn more about what has been called unlimited credits, but you can also think of this as unlimited access to sales intel platform. Whether you're looking for account data, contact data, this is a great chance for you to find the phone numbers, the emails for those decision makers that have somehow eluded you, and that you could have a really good solution for them if you could just find out who they are and also know what the right time is for that. So go up, request a demo with our sponsor, and you'll get a quick call with sales intel, and we'll see what we can do to help you. Again, here's that cliche, but finish Q4 strong, but really build your Q1 pipeline and make sure that you're really set up for success in the future.
Yeah, the easiest way to do it is just click the button right at the top of this page, request a demo, and the sales intel team will get in touch with you pretty soon. And then we also have Converter here.
So mine's not about what can we sell you this quarter? Mine's about, hey, how can we help you plan for next year? One of the things that we have the benefit of is working with so many lead providers. And it's pretty amazing when you start diving into the web of where your leads are actually coming from, especially if you're doing content syndication or getting third-party leads and things like that. So at Converter, we're offering a no-charge demand generation audit. And we have so much benchmark data on what is quality leads. What are the quality lead providers? Are you going to the right source for the niche that you're in? How are you tracking against the other industry when it comes to getting qualified leads versus unqualified leads? And the other big piece, which a lot of us think about now, is compliance. Where's your data actually coming from? And are you working with vendors that are compliant when it comes to all the changing regulations? And where are the areas of risk that as a company you should be thinking about? So I know we're talking to sales today and a lot of sellers. This is super critical because your team is receiving the leads. And so one of these things that we want is better quality, higher value, and leads that are hot to buy, that we know we can go after and trust, and we don't have to, check off all these boxes. So this is just a way to help you to plan out and map what would be some things that we can help you with or make recommendations for to expose areas of gap and improve your demand gen engine.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sales Intel, thank you so much for sponsoring this event. Pleasant, thank you so much for participating with Converter. Audience, you are the best part of MSP. We love having you here. Thank you so much for the participation in the chat. I see here, Pleasant, you have a fan watching you, Sean Cook, uh, really a fan of yours. Audience, while the speakers and I hang out backstage, the MSP team will make sure that you will receive the recording and the key takeaways from this event right into your inbox. So you have this content handy when you most need it to close Q4 strong and start Q1 stronger. Ariana, Craig, and Pleasant, thank you so much for all your knowledge. And I'll see you all next time. We can go backstage.
Thanks for hosting.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.